They laughed at her. A young maid, standing in front of scholars, billionaires and museum elites, clutching a cleaning rag in one hand and an ancient tablet in the other. They told her to read it just to humiliate her. But when she opened her mouth, the room went silent. What happened next didn't just humble a powerful man, it exposed a secret the world was never meant to hear. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's about courage, truth, and how a woman the world dismissed as just a maid changed everything, live on stage with the cameras rolling. Before we begin this story of unexpected courage, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. The glass slips before anyone even notices her. It hits the marble with a sharp, crystalline scream that silences the laughter. Red wine splashes across the white tablecloth, blooming like spilled blood. Every head in the room turns, and all eyes land on her. Amina freezes. Her hands shake as she bends to pick up the shards. The sound of the music fades into a faint hum somewhere far away. What she hears instead is the whisper, the kind of whisper that cuts louder than any shout. "She's the new maid, right?" Poor thing looks terrified. Or careless. The words buzz in the air like flies. Amina can feel her face burn as she gathers the broken pieces in trembling fingers. The pain of a small cut doesn't even register. The sting of humiliation does. "Leave it," says a man's voice, smooth, commanding, with a trace of accent that screams money. "You've done enough damage for tonight." It's Mr. Alexander Hunt, the art collector. Silver-haired, elegant, known for his world tours and his ruthless opinions. He's the kind of man whose approval can turn a painter into a legend, or ruin them with a single word. "I'm sorry, sir," Amina whispers. "It was an accident." "Accident?" His voice is sharp now. "Do you realize you almost spilled on a Basquiat?" The room titters again, laughter disguised as pity. Amina can feel her throat tighten. She doesn't even know what a Basquiat is. All she knows is she needs this job. She needs the money for rent, for her little sister's school fees, for the future she never got to have. She stands, eyes lowered. "It won't happen again, sir." Alexander turns to the guests, smiling in that performative way rich men do when they're about to make someone an example. "It's quite all right, everyone," he says, voice dripping with charm. "Our young maid here probably finds this world of art and culture a little overwhelming." Laughter again. Louder this time. Amina's chest burns. Her fingers clutch the silver tray so tightly that her knuckles turn white. Hours earlier, she had arrived before dawn. The mansion smelled of lemon polish and fresh lilies. Amina had taken the long bus from the east side of the city, an hour and 20 minutes standing the whole way. She had watched the sunrise over the glass towers, thinking how different this world was from the one she came from. At 23, she should have been in her final year of college. But life doesn't wait for dreams. When her father fell ill, tuition became a luxury. So she traded books for brooms, essays for empty halls that echoed with other people's wealth. The Hunt residence was her third job that year. She told herself it would be temporary. Just until things got better. Just until she found her way back to who she was meant to be. But tonight, with chandeliers blazing above and guests speaking in accents that curled like smoke, she feels more invisible than ever. Dinner resumes. The wine stain is covered with a new cloth. The laughter flows again, and the humiliation of a maid is forgotten like spilled drink. Forgotten, except by her. Amina moves quietly, placing plates, refilling glasses. But her eyes keep drifting to the long oak table where Mr. Hunt sits with his guests. They're discussing art, loudly, confidently, and on the table before them lies something strange. A stone tablet, carved with symbols that shimmer faintly under the light. "It's from the Koba civilization," Mr. Hunt says, tapping the edge with a gloved finger. 14th century. The only one of its kind. "It looks ancient," says one of the guests, a woman with pearls like moonlight. "Have you translated it yet?" "Not yet," Alexander replies, smiling. "Our museum team is working on it. But I'm certain it's a ritual inscription. Possibly a royal decree." Amina pauses. Her pulse quickens. Koba civilization. She knows that name. Not from school, but from a book she once read, an old anthropology text she found discarded behind the library. The Koba language wasn't ceremonial. It was poetic, philosophical. They didn't carve decrees. They carved promises. The symbols on the tablet, she recognizes a few of them. She shouldn't. She shouldn't even remember. But she does. Later, as dessert is served, Mr. Hunt notices her looking. "Do you find it interesting?" he asks suddenly, voice echoing across the table. Amina freezes again. "Sir?" The tablet, he says, gesturing casually. You've been staring at it all evening. She lowers her gaze immediately. I'm sorry. It's just beautiful. Beautiful? His lips curl into a smirk. Do you even know what it is? The guests chuckle. Amina shakes her head, cheeks burning. No, sir. Not exactly. Then allow me to educate you, he says, leaning back in his chair. This, my dear, is a piece of history. A coded message from an ancient civilization. It's in a language no one today can read. He pauses, then with a glint of cruel amusement adds, Would you like to try? The room erupts in laughter again. Someone clinks a glass. It's a joke, a rich man's entertainment at the expense of someone who serves his wine. Amina's fingers tighten around the tray. She wants to walk away. But something inside her, the part of her that still remembers late nights under a flickering bulb, scribbling translations in the margins of torn notebooks, won't let her. She steps forward. Her voice is quiet, steady. May I, sir? The room falls silent. The air shifts. Mr. Hunt looks amused but intrigued. By all means, he says, gesturing grandly. Impress us. Amina walks toward the table. Her heart is pounding so loudly she can barely hear her own thoughts. Every step feels like walking into fire. She reaches the tablet, smooth, heavy, ancient. Her eyes trace the markings. 1 symbol. 2. 3. And suddenly the years collapse. The forgotten lessons, the books she read in secret, the language she loved but had no one to share it with. Her lips part. It doesn't say what you think it does, she whispers. Mr. Hunt frowns. Excuse me? She looks up at him. Her voice is trembling but clear. It's not a royal decree, she says softly. It's a love poem. Gasps ripple around the table. No one moves. No one even breathes. The chandelier light flickers slightly, throwing ripples of gold across the stone tablet as if the universe itself leans in to listen. A love poem? Mr. Hunt repeats, his tone halfway between disbelief and disdain. My dear girl, do you realize scholars from Oxford and Yale have been studying this inscription for years without managing to translate a single word? Amina keeps her eyes on the tablet. Her pulse hammers in her chest, but she doesn't look away. That's because they're looking at it the wrong way. The laughter that follows is polite this time, nervous, uncertain. The guests exchange glances, unsure whether to be amused or impressed by her audacity. And how, pray tell, should we be looking at it? Mr. Hunt asks. His smile is sharp, the kind that never reaches his eyes. Amina swallows hard. They're reading it top to bottom, she says, tracing her finger along the grooves in the stone. But the Koba people wrote in spirals, starting from the center outward. It's not linear. It's emotional. Emotional? Someone scoffs. Languages don't have emotions. They do when the people who spoke them did, Amina says softly. Her voice trembles, but her words land with the quiet force of truth. For a moment, no one dares to interrupt her. She leans closer to the tablet, reading the symbols like she's touching memories. This word, she says, tapping one of the carvings, means wait. It's written 3 times. That repetition is how the Koba showed longing, waiting for someone who never returned. Her fingers move to another cluster of symbols. And this one means moonlight. It's a metaphor for distance, light you can see but never touch. A few of the guests glance at each other. The woman with the pearls leans forward, visibly moved. Mr. Hunt shifts in his seat, his confidence thinning. And where did you learn this? He asked sharply. Amina straightens slowly. I didn't. I read. Read? My mother used to clean the city library, she explains quietly. When she worked late, I'd stay there after hours, reading whatever was left on the tables. One night, someone had forgotten a book about the Koba civilization. The grammar patterns, they stayed with me. A hush settles over the room. Even the pianist in the corner stops playing. You're telling me, Hunt says slowly, that a maid, a girl who never finished college, managed to decipher something that teams of international experts couldn't? Amina looks up at him, eyes dark, steady, unflinching. I'm saying maybe those experts never thought to listen to the people they studied. Her words cut through the air like glass. For the first time that evening, Amina isn't invisible. She's terrifyingly visible, standing there, framed by light, her uniform plain but her presence radiant. The woman with pearls breaks the silence. Mr. Hunt, she says softly, didn't your catalog say this tablet came from the Koba temple ruins near Benin City? Yes, he replies cautiously. I recall a controversy about that, she continues. Something about private excavation? Hunt's jaw tightens. All acquisitions were legal. Amina glances up, something flickering in her eyes, a quiet recognition. I don't think so, she says. The Koba sites weren't open for private collectors in 2019. That was the year of the cultural export ban. A few of the guests murmur. Someone whispers, is she serious? Amina looks down again at the tablet. This inscription doesn't belong here, she says softly. It's not just a poem. It's a farewell. The words, they describe the fall of their city. A promise to protect what little they could save. This piece was never meant to be sold. The air grows heavy. Hunt's composure cracks for the first time. His smile fades, replaced by something colder. You're making dangerous accusations, he says, voice low. I'm only reading what's written, Amina replies. Inside her, fear and courage twist together like wire. She can feel her knees shaking, but her words refuse to bend. All her life, she has learned to stay silent. In classrooms that closed their doors to her, in interviews where her accent turned employers cold, in homes where she was called the help. But tonight, surrounded by fine crystal and cruel laughter, something inside her refuses to stay small. She continues, her voice stronger now. The last line says, we hide not gold, but memory. That means this tablet is part of a set, a series of writings meant to preserve language, not wealth. If this piece is here, others must have been taken too. Mr. Hunt's fingers tighten around his wine glass. The stem snaps with a faint crack. You're overstepping, he says through clenched teeth. Amina doesn't flinch. Or maybe I'm just not afraid to understand. The guests are whispering now, phones appearing under the table, discreet searches, glances exchanged. The woman with pearls looks back at the tablet, her expression softening. Mr. Hunt, she says carefully, if what she's saying is true, this could change everything. It might not even belong to you legally. I assure you, he snaps, it does? But the tremor in his voice betrays him. One of the other men, an investor judging by his tailored suit, chuckles nervously. Well, if it turns out she's right, that would make quite the headline, wouldn't it? Amina feels her breath hitch. She knows she's pushing a line she can't uncross. But some truths don't stay buried, not forever. She looks back at Hunt. The Koba believed that words carried spirit, she says softly. They thought silence was a form of death. That's why they wrote, so their voices wouldn't disappear. Her gaze holds his. Maybe that's why I'm standing here too. For a long moment, no one speaks. Then from the end of the table, a slow clap echoes. It's the Pearl Woman again, applauding gently, her eyes glistening. A few others join, hesitant at first, then more confidently. Mr. Hunt's face hardens, but he forces a smile. Remarkable performance, he says, each word dripping with condescension. Truly remarkable. You've entertained us all. But next time, perhaps leave archaeology to the professionals. He stands, signaling the end of dinner. The guests begin to rise, murmuring their goodbyes, half ashamed, half curious. But before he can turn away, the Pearl Woman stops him. I'll be calling a friend at the Cultural Heritage Board in the morning, she says calmly. Just to verify some details. You don't mind, do you? The flicker of panic behind Hunt's eyes is brief, but Amina sees it. As the guests leave, she stays rooted in place. The tablet glows faintly under the chandelier. The last line seems to shimmer, we hide not gold, but memory. She touches it gently, whispering to herself, and memory always finds its way home. That night, as she scrubs the last of the dishes in the silent kitchen, her hands ache but her spirit doesn't. She knows something has shifted, not just in the room upstairs but in the balance of things. For the first time, she doesn't feel like someone surviving inside other people's worlds. She feels like someone who just cracked one open. The morning after the dinner, the mansion feels different. Quieter, heavier, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath. Amina walks through the corridor with her cleaning cart, the faint scent of lavender polish trailing behind her. The marble floor gleams beneath her feet, each reflection sharp enough to remind her where she stands, a maid in a house that doesn't belong to her. But something inside her refuses to bow anymore. The night before plays over in her mind, the shocked faces, the trembling in Hunt's jaw, the ripple of whispers when she said the words, "It's a love poem." She barely slept, but it wasn't exhaustion that kept her awake. It was the quiet hum of something unfamiliar, the taste of courage that wouldn't fade. When she enters the main hall, she sees two men in dark suits standing near the staircase. Their conversation drops as she approaches. One of them, tall with slicked back hair, gives her a cold glance before looking away. They don't look like art dealers or guests. They look like fixers. "Morning, miss," says the shorter one, forcing a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Mr. Hunt isn't to be disturbed today. I wasn't going to, Amina replies softly, lowering her gaze out of habit. But as she turns, she catches sight of the study door, closed, but voices leak through, muffled yet tense. She hears her name. The girl, Hunt's voice says sharply. Find out everything. Where she's from, who she talks to. I don't want this turning into a scandal. Her pulse spikes. She keeps moving, pretending not to hear. In the kitchen, she sinks into a chair, her mind spinning. They're talking about her. About what she said. About the truth. Later that afternoon, the air outside hums with the kind of gray heat that presses against the skin. Amina finishes her shift early and walks down the long driveway lined with iron gates and clipped hedges. She doesn't notice the car that follows her until she's halfway down the street. It's a black sedan crawling at the pace of her footsteps. The tinted window rolls down slightly, just enough for her to see the man from the mansion with slicked back hair. He gives a short, warning smile and drives off. A chill runs through her. That evening, when she gets home, a small one-bedroom apartment in a forgotten corner of the city, her younger sister Miriam is at the table, doing homework by the light of a cracked lamp. You're late, Miriam says without looking up. Work ran long, Amina replies, forcing a small smile. She doesn't mention the car. She doesn't mention the voices. She just sets a bag of bread and eggs on the table and exhales. But Miriam studies her face, brow furrowed. You're shaking, she says quietly. I'm fine, Amina lies. Just tired. She heads to the bathroom and closes the door behind her. The mirror shows a face she barely recognizes, eyes too alert, too alive. The maid uniform she once wore like armor now feels like a cage. She whispers to her reflection, "You shouldn't have spoken." But even as she says it, a voice deep inside her answers, "No, you should have." 2 days later, a headline spreads across the art blogs and social media. Whispers around Hunt's private collection, legal or looted. The article mentions an anonymous insider who questioned the origins of certain African artifacts. It doesn't name her, but she knows it's about her. She recognizes every detail. That morning, the mansion buzzes with panic. Mr. Hunt is on the phone when she arrives, pacing the hallway. His tone is sharp, panicked but controlled. "I told you to keep it quiet," he snaps into the receiver. "I don't care what you have to do, bury it." When he sees Amina, he hangs up abruptly. "You," he says. "Come here." Her stomach tightens. She steps closer, cautious. "I'm sure you've seen the news," he says, eyes narrowing. "Someone's spreading lies about my collection. I need to know if you've been speaking to anyone, reporters, officials, anyone at all." "No, sir," she says quickly. He studies her face for a long, tense moment. Then his tone softens, dangerously. "I understand you might feel emotional about what happened the other night. But this is bigger than you, Amina. These are delicate matters. People's reputations, livelihoods, are at stake." She stays silent. He steps closer. "If you truly respect this house, you'll forget everything you think you saw or understood. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." "Good." He forces a smile. "Loyalty is rewarded." He slips an envelope onto the counter beside her, thick, heavy, the corner lined with cash. "Take a few days off," he says. "Clear your mind." She looks at the envelope but doesn't touch it. Something inside her, the same something that made her speak that night, refuses to bend. When she finally meets his gaze, her voice is calm, steady. "I don't want your money." For a split second, Hunt's mask slips. The anger beneath it flickers through like a storm. "Be careful," he says softly. "Curiosity can destroy people." She nods and leaves. But as she walks out, she knows she's crossed a line she can never return from. That night, rain hits the city in relentless sheets. The streets shimmer under neon light. Amina sits at her kitchen table, staring at her phone. The article keeps updating. Now there's a photo of the tablet, zoomed in, the symbols visible. Someone has leaked it. Her heart races as she types a message to the journalist's contact listed at the bottom of the article. "I know what the inscription means. And where it came from." She hesitates before pressing send. Once she does, there will be no going back. Then she remembers Hunt's words, "Curiosity can destroy people." And her own voice replies in her mind, "So can silence." She sends it. The next morning, she meets the journalist, a woman named Clara, in a small cafe near the bus station. Clara is sharp-eyed, mid-30s, dressed plainly but with the calm assurance of someone used to chasing the truth through dangerous places. "I didn't expect you to show," Clara says, lowering her coffee. "I almost didn't," Amina admits. "I need to stay anonymous." Of course. They speak quietly, heads close. Amina tells her everything: the dinner, the tablet, the carvings, the conversation about the export ban. Clara listens without interruption, only jotting a few notes. When Amina finishes, Clara says, "Do you have proof of the translation?" Amina nods. "I copied part of it onto my phone before I left that night." She opens her gallery and shows a photo of the tablet under the chandelier light. Clara studies it, her expression shifting from curiosity to awe. "This could blow open a lot more than you think," she whispers. "If Hunt smuggled that artifact, others could be involved: dealers, museums, customs officials." Her voice trails off. She looks at Amina with something like respect. "You're very brave." "I'm just tired," Amina says. "Tired of watching people like him get away with everything." That night, she returns home to find her apartment door slightly ajar. Her breath catches. She pushes it open. The room is dark, too dark. The air smells faintly of cologne that isn't hers. Her drawers are open. Her phone charger is gone. Her notebooks scattered. She steps back slowly, her heart pounding. On the table lies a single envelope, the same kind Hunt had offered her, only this time it's empty, with one line written inside in neat, cold letters. "Stop talking." By morning, Clara's article has gone live. The headline reads, "Inside the Hidden Empire of Art Collector Alexander Hunt, How Culture Becomes Commodity." The story goes viral within hours. Photos of the tablet circulate online, and cultural boards begin releasing statements about the investigation. Hunt denies everything, of course, calling it a coordinated smear campaign by envious rivals. But the world has started watching. At the mansion, security guards patrol the gates now. Guests cancel appointments. Reporters gather outside the iron fence. Inside, Hunt's voice echoes through the halls, sharp and furious. Amina doesn't return to work. She knows she's been fired before the message even arrives. But as she watches the headlines scroll across her cracked phone screen, she feels something new blooming inside her. Not victory, not safety, but power. For once, she's not the one being silenced. That night, as she tucks Miriam into bed, the younger girl whispers, "Are we in trouble?" Amina brushes her hair gently. "Not yet," she says. But truth always makes enemies before it makes change. Outside, the sirens wail somewhere distant, the sound of a city restless, shifting, preparing for something. Amina lies awake long after Miriam falls asleep, her mind racing. She doesn't know what will come next, but she knows she's already set something in motion that no one can stop. The city wakes to rain and headlines. By dawn, every major news network runs the same story: federal agents raid Alexander Hunt's mansion in ongoing artifact scandal. Cameras crowd the iron gates that once kept the world out. Reporters press microphones against car windows, flashes slicing through the mist as black-suited investigators move in and out of the mansion, carrying boxes sealed with evidence tape. Inside a small apartment miles away, Amina stands frozen before her television. The broadcast shows familiar rooms: the marble staircase she scrubbed, the gallery she once dusted in silence, the chandelier she had stared at while trying to look invisible. Now those same spaces are crime scenes. Her sister Miriam watches wide-eyed from the couch. "That's where you worked," she says softly. Amina nods, barely breathing. "It was." Hours later, her phone buzzes with a call from Clara. "You did it," Clara says, her voice vibrating with both excitement and exhaustion. "They found documentation, shipping manifests, private letters, even receipts. It's worse than anyone thought. Hunt's been smuggling cultural artifacts from half a dozen countries for over a decade. He used fake restoration permits to cover it." Amina presses the phone tighter to her ear, barely whispering, "And the poem?" Clara pauses. "It was written by a woman, a priestess from Nubia. Hunt's collectors translated it wrong for years because they assumed no woman could have written something so profound. The true translation matches your notes exactly." A deep silence follows. Amina sinks onto her chair, overwhelmed. For a moment, it's not victory she feels, it's grief. Grief for every stolen thing, every silenced voice, every person who had been treated like she once was, background noise in someone else's story. Later that day, a convoy of police cars and press vans crowd the museum district. The Cultural Authority holds a public statement in front of the Metropolitan Hall of Antiquities. Reporters swarm as the spokesperson reads from the podium. "We are suspending all dealings with Mr. Hunt's estate pending full investigation. Furthermore, our joint task force has located artifacts previously believed lost, items of significant African origin that were illegally exported and falsely catalogued. The crowd murmurs. Cameras click. A flash of lightning rolls across the horizon. Behind the fence, Amina stands among onlookers, hood pulled low, her heart pounding. The spokesperson continues. We want to thank the unnamed employee whose courage and knowledge brought this injustice to light. For a moment, the world stills. People applaud. Some cheer. Amina's eyes sting. She wipes them quickly, afraid someone might notice. She doesn't want fame. She just wanted truth. But standing there, watching the world recognize the value of voices like hers, she feels something deeper than pride. She feels seen. That evening, Hunt's lawyer appears on television, trying to do damage control. His statement is polished, rehearsed, and cold. My client has always acted in good faith. These allegations stem from misunderstandings in acquisition protocols, not criminal intent. But the footage tells another story. Investigators removing hidden safes, crates marked with erased origin stamps, a ledger listing buyers under pseudonyms. The court of public opinion doesn't hesitate. #spread. #justice for our heritage trends across platforms. Clara calls again, her tone urgent. They want you to testify. The authorities can keep you protected, but they'll need your statement to close the case. Amina hesitates. If I testify, everyone will know who I am. Yes, Clara says gently. But sometimes truth needs a face. Amina stares at her cracked phone screen. The reflection looks back at her, weary but unbroken. Then I'll do it. The courthouse smells like paper and rain. Days later, Amina walks into the witness stand, her heart pounding beneath her simple white blouse. Cameras are forbidden inside, but she knows the world is waiting outside those walls. Hunt sits at the defense table, his once commanding posture now stiff and hollow. He looks older, smaller somehow, a man losing grip on the empire he built from theft and arrogance. When Amina takes her oath, her hands don't shake. The prosecutor begins gently. Can you tell the court how you first encountered the artifact in question? Amina recounts the gala, the translation, the humiliation, the fear that followed. Each word feels like a thread being pulled from the fabric of her silence. She explains the tablet's meaning, the pattern of smuggling she uncovered, the intimidation that tried to shut her down. At one point, the defense lawyer interrupts sharply. Miss Yusuf, isn't it true that you are not a certified archaeologist? How can we trust your translation? She meets his gaze steadily. You can trust it, she says, her voice calm but firm, because knowledge doesn't always live inside a university. I learned the language from a rare book someone left behind in the library where my mother cleaned floors. I studied it every night after work, page by page, until the symbol spoke to me. I didn't need a degree to understand it, I just needed curiosity, discipline, and a mind that refused to stay silent. The courtroom hums with murmurs. Even the judge leans forward slightly. She continues, voice steady but alive with emotion. You don't need a title to tell the truth. You just need to stop being afraid of it. By the time she steps down, the air feels lighter, as if the building itself exhales. When the verdict finally comes weeks later, it arrives like the echo of a storm. Guilty on all counts. The words hit like a bell rung deep in the soul. Hunt is sentenced to years in prison, his assets frozen, his collections reclaimed by international authorities. Museums begin pledging transparency initiatives. Universities release statements about revising their acquisition ethics. The ripple spreads far beyond the courtroom. But for Amina, the victory feels personal, not just against Hunt, but against every system that told her voice didn't matter. Months pass. Amina returns to her studies. With help from Clara and a small grant from a cultural preservation group, she enrolls in a program for museum ethics and archival preservation. She spends evenings volunteering to restore damaged African manuscripts. She's no longer invisible, she's part of something larger, a quiet revolution of truth-tellers and healers reclaiming stolen stories. One evening, Clara visits her at the restoration lab. You could have sold your story, she says. Media outlets would have paid a fortune for exclusives. Amina smiles faintly. I didn't want money. I wanted to remind people that history isn't property, it's memory. You can't own it. You can only protect it. Clara nods. You did more than remind them. You changed the conversation. Outside, the city hums, buses groaning, horns echoing, life moving on. But for Amina, everything feels different now. The air tastes cleaner, as if truth itself carries oxygen. A few weeks later, the museum unveils its new exhibit, Echoes of the Forgotten. The centerpiece is the tablet, displayed at last with the correct translation engraved beneath it. The plaque reads, written by an unnamed Nubian priestess, a message of love, faith, and freedom. Translation credited to Amina Yusuf, cultural researcher and advocate. Visitors gather around, whispering. Some recognize her name from the news. Others just stand in awe. Amina watches quietly from a corner, her reflection shimmering in the glass beside the artifact. A little girl tugs at her mother's sleeve and points at the plaque. "Mom, she looks like me," the girl says. And in that simple sentence, everything Amina fought for makes sense. As the night ends, Clara joins her near the exhibit. "What's next for you?" she asks. Amina smiles softly. "I don't know. But I think there's still more truth to uncover, stories waiting in silence, waiting for someone to listen." Clara raises her brow. "Planning to tell them yourself?" Amina glances at the crowd, then back at the shimmering artifact. "Maybe. But this time I'll make sure they reach the right audience." Outside, the museum lights fade against the night sky, and the camera of your imagination lingers on Amina's face, steady, calm, and quietly triumphant. Her voice carries as if speaking to everyone watching. The truth doesn't belong to the powerful. It belongs to the brave. And sometimes, bravery looks like a whisper that refuses to fade. She turns and walks away, her figure blending into the city lights. A reminder that justice isn't a destination but a ripple that keeps spreading. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, then take a moment before you scroll to like and share this video, comment your thoughts and subscribe for more intriguing stories.